Hello, I am recording this video. It is about quarter after 11 p.m. Houston time, so it should be about quarter after 11 Friday, September 22nd, Houston time, so it should be about quarter after 7 a.m. Saturday, the September 23rd, Kampala time. Recording this video for PyCon Uganda as a follow-up to my keynote, specifically as a follow-up to the Q&A section after my keynote. So there were a couple of questions that came up. I've got some notes here. There were a couple of questions that came up, and it felt like they were different versions of the same type of question. Sort of one, how to get better at problem solving, because one of the things I talk about in my keynote is this idea of Africa having different problem sets that can be made use of. And then the other one was how to develop a problem solving mindset. And so it seemed like there were some questions around sort of how to get started with that, how to improve your problem solving skills, how to get started with that. And I realized I wasn't as clear as I could have been around some of those things. But I think what I was thinking of a range of problems, from large problems to very small problems. And so one of the things, that comes up is just this idea, start with personal problems, start with small things. And one of the reasons I decided to make this video now is, like I said, it's about 11 p.m. my local time on Friday night. And I had a video call with a friend of mine, Vanessa. I had a conversation with her, I don't know, like 10 or so years ago. And it stuck in my mind about something that she was considering working on. And she was considering building like a Django project that was going to help her catalog different makeup she had, and when she bought it and what the expiration date was, that kind of thing. And I remember thinking of that as a project that could be very useful to somebody, especially somebody who was trying to learn Django or to learn programming. The interesting thing about Vanessa is she's a very skilled programmer already, and so she wasn't really like a beginner per se. Prior, she had helped work on writing device drivers for the Linux kernel. So she's already a skilled programmer. But as far as like learning Django and something like that, that was a project that she was considering working on. And that always stuck in my mind. And that combined with this, the accounting project that I worked on that I mentioned in my keynote, I think of those as things as good places to start for problem solving or improving one's problem solving skills. Because one, it's a problem that you will care about. It might not seem super fancy to other people, but it's a problem you care about. It's a problem that you understand. You know what you want to happen. You know what you want done. And you will have to sort of figure out how to implement it. So it's never a question like with the accounting project I worked on, or with Vanessa's idea about maybe building some sort of a Django project to keep track of like makeup and when it expired, that sort of thing. It wasn't a question of could it be done. It was simply a question of how it would be implemented. And so when people sort of ask, how do you improve your problem solving skills, or how do you get started building a problem solving mindset? I think things like that start with things that are personal. And then there's also this, there's nothing that's too small, and whatever you're working on doesn't need to be fancy. In my experiences, I've been around a lot of people who were trying to learn to program or trying to learn to be software engineers. And one of the common pieces of advice is have a project to work on. And so when those people start to look for projects to work on, it feels like they often try to pursue something that is like the most complex computery thing that they can do, so it will be impressive to other people. That's not always helpful. What's helpful is something that you will actually care about and that actually matters to you. And so, again, with the example that Vanessa gave of, sort of like a site to track makeup, or my accounting example, or just anything that is important to you, the person who is trying to improve your problem solving skills or trying to improve your skills with Python or what have you. Is it something that some code that you can write for yourself, some code that you can write for a family member or for someone that you care about? Those are excellent ways to get started thinking about solving problems. Don't try to solve all the problems of Kampala or all the problems of Uganda or all the problems of East Africa. Start with something that is close to you, that means something to you, and that matters to you. And I would also say, I know, again, there's a tendency, maybe a desire, like especially if you are someone who is trying to enhance your skills, maybe so that you can find employment somewhere else. There's a tendency to try to follow tutorials and build the things that they suggest. And those are not bad for maybe your first project, so you can learn the fundamentals of a new technology stack. But when you're trying to build a project of your own or find your own project, I think it's useful to distinguish yourself by your problem set. Because if we use this as an example, the Django project website has a tutorial that I think has you build a polling application. And then there's a Django Ghost tutorial, and there are various other tutorials you can find online. The trick with those is that those are going to be sort of the same things that everyone globally has access to. If you're trying to distinguish yourself with new solutions, you can do that by working on solutions to problems that other people don't have access to. But for instance, the Django project polling app or things like that, everyone around the world has access to those. But what are problems that you might encounter? And this is what I was trying to convey in my talk, this idea of specific problem sets that exist in different parts of Africa that could be sort of a natural resource. Those are problems that you have access to that perhaps other people from outside the region don't have access to. And so starting to work on problems like that, I think, can help you distinguish yourself and help you develop new types of expertise. I wish I could give you specific examples, but again, I'm not in Uganda, so I can't really speak directly to, oh, here are some examples. I will give one example that Vanessa pointed out, my friend Vanessa. She's got family in Mexico. They live outside of Mexico City. In one situation, they're having to sort of collecting rainwater in large barrels where they live. And it makes me think of, there was a talk at the conference earlier about the Internet of Things. And so something like that, I can imagine building some sort of IoT device that would, allow you to keep track of water levels in those barrels. And that is something that most people here in the US wouldn't encounter and wouldn't have to deal with, because that's not a thing that most of us have. I know there's I think a talk coming up later today in the conference about data visualization that I think was supposed to happen earlier, but things change. If you build some sort of an application to help you keep track of your grades in school or your siblings' grades in school or something like that, and then visualize that in some way, building something like that, it might seem like it's not fancy enough or not complex enough, but what that will do, building something that, working on a solution to a problem that you yourself deeply understand, will give you an opportunity to make design decisions and make choices about, okay, well, how am I going to implement this and why? I'm going to do it this way instead of that way. Why did I choose this way instead of that way? And then if you find yourself in a situation where you're trying to describe your skills or your abilities to someone about the design decisions and the choices that you made. But if you are using the same problem sets that everyone else globally is using, then it's difficult for you to distinguish yourself. If you are focusing on problem sets that are local to you, not only will you have created a local solution for yourself, but you will also be able to distinguish yourself by having solved a problem that other people may not have access to. So I'm going to cut this off here because it's slightly longer than I wanted it to be. I hope that is helpful, and put this on YouTube. And if you have questions or comments, then feel free to leave those in the comments of the video below. Thanks a lot.